Speaking with Larry. Oh, Paul Lane, how you doing?
Good, Jonathan. How about you?
Good, sir. Good, sir. MHA for the people in the district of Mount Pearl, Southlands?
That's correct, sir.
Woohoo! And master of the microphone. How are you tonight, sir?
I am just fantastic, Jonathan. And the reason why I wanted to call is I wanted to try to bring a little clarity, I guess, if you will, to the whole 24-hour snow clearing business, because I've gotten a couple of calls and some emails, and certainly Facebook has been gone wild all day, and I've been getting a number of questions about the 24-hour snow clearing, or I guess the ending of the 24-hour snow clearing policy, or what used to be in place.
Okay.
So I, and there's no doubt people were pointing me to the Transportation Works website, and in the Transportation Works website it says, and there's no doubt it's there, it says that snow plows come off the road at 11:30 or 11 o'clock, I believe, until 5 in the morning. And even if it was snowing at 11 o'clock, and there was a snowstorm, they still come off the road at 11 o'clock until 5 o'clock in the morning. There is no plows on regardless of weather conditions. And people are saying, my God, that can't be. I mean, what are we going to do in these high drop volume traffic areas and so on, like the Outer Ring Road and Pitts Memorial and all these things? So the issue is that has always been the policy for many parts of Newfoundland and Labrador, particularly the rural areas. So you take the Irish Loop as an example. That has never had 24-hour snow clearing, right? They never did have it. But what happened is that in 2000, and as a matter of fact, nobody has at one point, but in 2009, I'm told, I checked with the Department of Transportation Works, in 2009, I'm told, the government introduced a new program whereby they designated 13 zones or areas in which they would introduce a night shift. So there would be 24-hour clearing. It would be a reduced night shift from basically 11 to 5. And those 13 areas, I haven't got the list in front of me, but they would include areas like the Outer Ring Road, Pitts Memorial. It would include Veterans Memorial Highway. It would include Trans-Canada Highway. I think one zone is Whitburn to St. John's. Another one's Whitburn to Clarenville. Then I think between Gander and Grand Falls was another area. Another one around between Stephenville and Corner Brook and so on. Busy areas, okay?
Yep.
And for those areas, they would have somebody on the road 24 hours. Now, for that night shift, it would be a reduced staff. So in other words, on a route, I was explaining, on a route during the daytime, there may be, say, 6 plows, but in the midnight shift, if you will, the 11 to 5 shift, that would be down to 2 plows, but there would still be 2 plows on the road.
There would still be plows on the road, despite the fact that traffic is reduced. I mean, in fact, I remember sitting in this chair for the past 2 winters, we get calls of people who are actually driving behind the plows, or they were driving ahead of the plows. They pulled over to let the plow go ahead of them while waiting for it for several minutes. There are plows out there. They're just not as many.
There's not as many, but they were there.
Right.
Now, when Budget 2016 came down, the decision was made by the government of the day that for those 13 zones that had the 24-hour clearing, that had that reduced clearing after 11 o'clock, that they would no longer be on the road automatically. What they are now saying is that for those areas that, for example, they would be looking at the weather forecasts. They would be depending on, they're saying supervisors to monitor things, whatever that means. I don't know if that means someone goes out in a truck and drives the route to see what the roads are like. They would also, the minister said they would depend on like the RCMP and the RNC to report into them to say, look, boys, roads are slippery, you should get some plows out, whatever, okay? Yeah. And based on all those things, then a decision will be made whether or not on any given night there will be plows in those areas. And again, it's those areas only, any given night to clear snow or to put down salt or whatever. So to say that there will be no snow clearing when there are snowstorms in those areas is actually not true.
Okay.
And if the evening shift was on, for example, and the boys were supposed to get off at 11 o'clock, what I've been told is that they could make a decision, for example, to say, well, boys, it's snowing really bad, we're going to keep you back on overtime to keep you on, or they may let's say if they went home at 11 and at 1 o'clock some unexpected snow started, they could call people in for those 13 areas to come on and do the snow clearing and whatever.
Okay.
The problem that you get into, and I guess the only where it gets tricky and tangly, is that if the forecast is not right, and there's nobody scheduled to be on, and say at 2 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden we get a freeze that wasn't expected, and the roads the black ice is not safe. It could be like that maybe for an hour before the RCMP or someone discovers it.
Well, just execute common sense and don't get in your bloody car. But Larry, I know times are tight, but why are you operating as comms for Transportation Works? Why aren't they clarifying this themselves? That's the question I have.
Well, I mean, look, communications has clearly not been their strong suit.
Right.
And I'm getting calls from people, and like I said, I'm getting questions from people. And so I'm just trying to put it out there to be helpful, to give people the proper information, which, yeah, you're right, it should be clarified government. I called the department today, and I told them, I said, boys, you need to put something out there to clarify this issue for people, and you need to go onto your website where your policy exists and to update that policy to reflect the realities, because the way it's read there now, it clearly gives the impression that the CBS bypass, as an example, which was put out there, that normally would be cleared. If you read the policy as it's written, it gives the impression that at 11 o'clock, even if we're in the middle of a snowstorm, we're taking the plows off the road and no one comes on until 5 in the morning. That is not the case, but that's not how it's explained on their website. So
this is just one of those cases where it's so easy to get the message incorrect. And I know for a fact that comms directors get paid a sweet, sweet salary. And each and every time there's a miscommunication like this, I cry a little inside because there's some good money being thrown after bad if you can't get this type of information clear on a press release. But thank you, Larry, for your service tonight. And on behalf of Transportation Works, thank you for clarifying this, both here on VOCM and on the Facebook page of MHA Pauline.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad to do that. But again, Jonathan, in addition to adding clarification, I think it is important to note, though, that there is a concern in the sense that if there was unexpected weather, and now there's nobody already it makes sense if there's someone at the depot and it's a beautiful clear night, it makes sense they'd say, well, geez, we paid those guys, they're dead, they're there, and there's no snow to clear, there's no ice control, they're sat at the depot doing nothing. But if there's a case where they don't call somebody in and then the weather changes, now you got to call somebody in, there's going to be a delay in terms of by the time it's discovered, it gets called in, you go through all that, you got to call the guys in, they got to drive from their homes, wherever it's to, warm up the trucks. So you could be an hour or 2 hours potentially with road conditions which are unsafe and people having to travel, because people have to travel back and forth for work. People take the outer ring road going back and forth to the airport and all these kinds of things.
Paul, I got to say, this is almost like babysitting, though, because if there's bad weather, what did we do 50 years ago? We didn't go outside. If there's bad weather, you know what? You just use precaution. And I got to say, it's okay. The logistics, and quickly here, because we have Ted here who wants to talk about opiates, the logistics make sense to me. You've explained it perfectly well. And if the weather stinks, delay your trip or call your work and tell them you're going to be late. What are they going to do? Because your life is worth a little bit of extra precaution. And I think that, it's not good to save money when it comes to roads, but the way you're presenting it and the facts are as they are, it just makes sense. So we all have to take a little bit of responsibility, too. Stay off the roads.
Well, I can see that. And if there's a major snowstorm, I agree with you. But I'm more concerned, to be honest with you. I think that if there was a snowstorm that happened, I think this is a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But the problem is, though, is that you get in areas where where areas can freeze and stuff like that, and you end up with black ice and whatever that you can't necessarily anticipate.
This ain't your first winter, though. Yeah. I don't know.
What I mean?
I can see it from both ways. It's a good conversation.
I can as well. And but I'm just putting out the information, and I'm just saying that it is a concern. And I mean, hopefully people will, use good judgment and all that kind of stuff. And I certainly hope that nobody gets hurt as a result of any of this. And let's hope for the best in that regard.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight. And Pauline, you have yourself a very Merry Christmas if I don't speak to you.
You too.
Thanks, buddy.
You too, buddy. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.